You should have all kinds of bells and whistles going off in your mind because you've read those Bible passages and now you can connect them to a location. This place is kind of the launch pad of some major biblical events that really, for me, is quite exciting. We think, hey, we're out in the middle of nowhere, and honestly, biblically, we're not. We're in a place that is kind of Bible event central. Nachal is the Hebrew, N-A-C-H-A-L. This is we're in the region of the Wilderness of Zin, but we're specifically in the spring of, or the wadi, or the Nachal, the gulch of Zin. So this is where, if Zin and sin are the same thing, this is where the manna and the quail began. And they'll continue all the way through where we go over in Jordan until they get to Jericho, and then the manna and the quail stop, and they begin to eat from the land. Yes? So this is place of divine provision. This is also the place where Moses sent the 12 spies from Nachal Tzin, from Midbar Tzin, from the Wilderness of Zin. This is also the place where Miriam dies. Yeah? This is also the place where Moses, the second time that Moses struck the rock. This is Numbers chapter 20 territory, okay? So, what's going on with Moses striking the rock, and after God told him, speak to the rock? And then this was such a breach of covenant relationship between God and Moses that God told Moses, because you struck the rock instead of speaking to the rock, you will not be allowed to enter the promised land. I mean, to us, it's striking, speaking, sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. There's lots of rocks around. Who really cares? So what's going on? Especially what's going on when we read the Bible with our eye in the rearview mirror to see what happened before, what's gone on behind. In Exodus 17, God tells Moses, strike the rock. So I know we're in jet lag, okay? This is our first day out in the field. I'm still feeling it. I've been here a couple of days longer than you. But focus for just a minute. Exodus 17, God says, strike the rock. Numbers 20, God says, speak to the rock. Is God just jerking Moses around? Is he toying with Moses? Is he playing? Is he trying to pay attention? Or is he trying to figure out, Moses, are you paying attention to me? Is that what's it? Moses, are you in foot lag instead of jet lag? That's supposed to be funny, but yeah. No courtesy laughs. No courtesy laughs. You lost it. You missed your opportunity. This is super important, though. In the southern Sinai, when Moses was in an area that is composed of all red granite, you can strike or not come out of that rock. It has to be a miracle. But when you get here to the northern Sinai deserts, we're not talking about way down south in the southern Sinai, at the tip of the Sinai Peninsula. It looks like a triangle standing on its end, on its peak. Southern Sinai, red granite, you're not going to get any water, so God says, strike all you want. In the northern Sinai, I want you to take a look around. Look over there and see the cracks, the crevasses in this different kind of rock. So some sandstone, some of that very narrow strip of flint. It's also, this area also has very crumbly, water porous, soft limestone. And so the water, like anywhere, is going to find its lowest point. So during rain, these cracks fill up with water, and they weep, they seep their water into this larger V-shaped cut right here. By the way, this is a valley of the shadow of death. It's one of the many. There are broad valleys in the land of Israel. That's a different word in Hebrew. It's usually emek or bikah, something like that. But this valley of the shadow of death, these are those narrow V-shaped valleys where it would be easy for you to be killed by a rock slide or attacked by some animal or ambushed by some human being. You see the pinch point there, right? So these are valleys. This is like a valley of the shadow of death. It's not the broad valley. It's the very narrow valley that's super dangerous. What does Psalm 23 say about the valley of the shadow of death? It says that I won't fear any evil because of what? I'm just awesome in this place. I'm just an incredible warrior. Why? Because I will be with you even through the valley of the shadow of death. So it's a promise of God's presence, even in the most dangerous place. Do you see how context changes how you read text, right? And that's, David, when he's writing Psalm 23, he assumes that everybody that reads it knows what he's talking about, but we don't know what he's talking about. In the West, we assume valley. Okay, used to see Barbara Stanwyck on the big valley, right? You know, no, the narrow valley, the place of danger. And we need to learn that God is not a God who runs from a fight. He's a God who runs to a fight. If his people are in a mess, God runs in that direction instead of from it. He's like those firemen and policemen on 9/11 that ran into the building. What does Psalm 46 say? A very present help in time of trouble. Yeah? So that's the nature of God that we're learning in the wilderness. Is it possible to learn anything about God in the wilderness? Absolutely. The wilderness of our lives, the wilderness of reality in the Bible. Okay, so back to Numbers 20. You thought I'd forgotten. No. Do you see this rock weeping? You see that? Okay. Do you see this scab right on here and further up? In Exodus 17, Moses could strike that red granite all he wanted. But in Numbers 20, God says, speak to the rock, because with my fingernail, I could take and scrape this. I'm not allowed to do it because this is a nature preserve. I could scrape the scab off of this rock. They're just mineral deposits. You can see it all along here. It eventually heals up that crack, and then water begins to back up behind it to the point that when the water pressure is relieved by a person or a goat taking a rock or a staff, a stick, and hitting that and breaking it off, anybody can get water from this rock. So what God is saying to Moses is, you make sure you conduct yourself in a way that glorifies me. If you speak to the rock, yeah, that's a miracle, just like down south when you hit the rock. But don't touch that rock, because if you break the scab, then who is it that gives water to the people? Moses. But Moses, God is saying, Moses, glorify me. I am your source, and you are not their source. I am their source too. So this is hugely important. We're decoding, in a way, this passage from Scripture, and we're understanding it in its original light. Don't you dare exalt yourself. You exalt me. Don't you dare place yourself in my position. You put me you show me to my people as their source. And that helps us understand that God is not just playing around with Moses. He's not toying with him. He's not checking to see if he's listening. What he's wanting to do is to be glorified through Moses. So what is God wanting to do with you? He wants to be glorified through you in any kind of context, any situation that you find yourself in back home. This is the power, ladies and gentlemen, this is the power of contextualized Scripture. And this is just a microcosm of what we want to do on this entire 2-week trip, is to put Bible in context so that you understand it in its purity and in its power.